I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Boy, a bigger bat. Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Pick up a basketball, maybe then I'll hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good? Baseball Unstitched. We are back. Episode number 80 from Flax and I. Can't believe we're here. But guys, we've got a great show for you today, as always, starting out with This Week in Baseball. And Flax, the Player of the Month awards came out. So not only will we hit on the Players of the Week, we will also hit on the Players of the Month. Going into topic number one today, Flax, I don't know if you've seen the standings, but it turns out there is still a team in first and still a team in last in every single division. We're going to talk about whether or not we think the guys in first have an opportunity to sustain what they've done over the first month and a half, and if the guys at the bottom are actually not showing us their true colors. Topic number two for the day is we're going to get back to one of our favorite organizations in baseball, the Miami Marlins, and their catching surplus that they currently have. Liam Hicks, kind of good at baseball, and we love to see it. And then we're going to finish off with talking a little bit about managers again here. Rob Thompson obviously fired last week as the manager of the Phillies, and we'll go into another NL East manager who is currently on the hot seat. But Flax, we start where we always start. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I was probably a couple wind gusts away from a home run in men's league this weekend, unfortunately, for the third or fourth time in the last 2 years. One day I will get the correct wind gust and get one out. But otherwise, not bad at all. How was your weekend?
Yeah, I could have thrown better this weekend. A lot of dinky singles, but I want to make sure everybody knows, because it's way more important to focus on the positive. Flax is seeing the ball at an amazing level right now, and the almost home run that he's talking about, he did not get any RBIs because I started to jog because I thought I saw it go over the fence. So when he says it was close, he means it. I just want to make sure everybody knows. It was one of those really unfortunate. What happened? The center fielder was like,
What happened on the double before that? Why did you not score from first on that one?
Because I'm slow? Is that a good enough answer for you?
Not really, but okay.
I actually don't know. It's funny. You told me in the dugout that I should have scored twice, and I've been trying to visualize the first time I should have scored and haven't been able to yet. So if I should have, I apologize.
That's okay. You're just trying to keep me in line for our RBI race right now. It's still tied leading the team. Yeah,
7-7
leading the team. Yeah. It's okay. My ERA is lower for now.
After this weekend, it definitely is lower. So either way, yeah, tough week on the mound for me. But it was a good weekend overall. I had some friends in town. It was nice to see some people in person that I hadn't get to see in a while and got to show off the house. So that was cool. But let's get into it as we do. Flax, This Week in Baseball. Tell us a little bit about the two Players of the Week.
Players of the Week this week on the AL side, Byron Buxton. And again, we've said this over and over again. When the dude's healthy, he is one of the best players in baseball, and he's showing it. He is on an absolute tear. I think he has 7 home runs in his last 13 games, if I'm not mistaken. It's definitely the last 2 weeks. But this week alone, he went 10 for 29, 1 double, 5 home runs, 7 RBIs. You would like more RBIs if you're hitting 5 home runs. Just ain't the Twins offense right now. On the NL side, Alec Burleson starting to find a stroke. Cardinals playing good baseball. Helps when he's got guys like J.J. Weatherholt on in front of him. 11 for 27, hit 407 this week with 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, and 8 runs scored. So there are those RBIs without putting the ball to the fence. How about that?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is duality, if you were curious. Players of the Month, Flax, and I'll start with the AL here. A name that will surprise absolutely no one. Arguably the best hitter in all of baseball right now. Yordan Alvarez won Player of the Month in the AL. He was 34 for 97. That is a 351 average. 7 doubles, 9 home runs, 21 RBIs. But what was more impressive than that, Flax, as a massive human being and a big-time slugger, he walked 15 times, only struck out 10 times throughout the month. What a start to the year for Yordan Alvarez. On the pitching side, a guy that I have really loved to watch so far this year. No surprise here for anybody. The AL Cy Young frontrunner, in my opinion, Jose Soriano. 5 games started this month through 30.2 innings to a tune of a 1.17 ERA and 38 Ks. Extremely excited to see how he finishes out the year. Flax, who are the last 2 in the AL for Rookie of the Month and Reliever of the Month?
Rookie of the month, K-Mac. Kevin McGonigal just continues to hit. There's really no way around it. We want to talk about how good Chase DeLauder's been as a rookie. Kevin McGonigal, you cannot look past. 32 for 98. He's hitting 327. I mean, it's absurd how consistent his bat to ball is, but he's turning them into extra base hits. He's got 9 doubles, two triples, 2 home runs, 18 runs scored. But the biggest piece, he walks more than he strikes out. Not only is he making good contact, but if he's not making contact, he's still finding a way to get himself on base. He's got 2 stolen bases in there. I'm kind of a believer that he'd steal more bases if the Tigers let him. I don't know that that's their game, right? I mean, the way that guys like Torque and Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green hit behind him, you're kind of giving up potential outs if you're not going to be super successful. He's in a position where he could just, stay on first base and score a lot of runs. Reliever of the month, Louis Varland for the Blue Jays. And I think it's even bigger than being reliever of the month. He's been really good, but he also had to step into the closer role because Jeff Hoffman was struggling a ton, and that team was losing games late. He's got a .71 ERA, only 1 earned run in 12.2 innings out of the bullpen, with 21 strikeouts in those 12 innings, which is ridiculous numbers. What's even crazier is you'd think the Twins, with the way they've been playing, would have loved to have him this year. I feel like a combination of him and Johan Duran would have been really nice in the back of that bullpen. But, he's pitching for the Blue Jays. Tell me more about the NL side.
The Louis Varling thing, I think the kids would say, 6, 7, something in there. But
sure.
Ildemaro
I don't think so,
Vargas.
but okay.
Ildemaro Vargas is your NL Player of the Month. This one makes me excited. We talked about him a week or 2 ago when he won NL Player of the Week. This is a long-time, 10-year MLB journeyman who is just hot right now. And I mean, he's hotter than the sun at the current moment, if I had to guess. 32 for 86 last month. He hit .372, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 5 home runs. We talked about it last week, I think, or maybe 2 weeks ago, Flax. The production that he has put up in the month of April equates to like over 10% of his production numbers throughout the entirety of his career. It's been so fun to watch. I believe he is still on the longest hit streak in the league. Did he finally?
Nope.
I missed it.
Yeah, he finally didn't get a hit the other day. 27 games is where it ended.
I'm hurt.
Mickey Moniak is now the leader in the clubhouse at, I believe, somewhere between 13 and 15 games.
That man, Mickey Moniak, hit a home run 4 seats to my left on Friday.
I can't believe you didn't jump over people to catch it.
I should have, but just didn't seem like the time. I would have to jump over Taylor. That's a bad idea. No need to do that.
Would have impressed the lady.
Maybe. NL Pitcher of the Month, Shohei Ohtani. No surprise here. Ohtani's been great. I think the Dodgers 6-man rotation is a really smart play for them at the current moment to keep him a little bit more healthy and give his body that extra day. He's also not hitting during all of his starts, which is a really good play for them as well. A .75 ERA this month over 24 innings and 4 games started, 28 Ks. Opponents have a batting average of 184 against him. So, yeah, kind of good, as per always. Flax, NL Rookie of the Month. My pick for Rookie of the Year, similar to how the AL was your pick for Rookie of the Year. Sal Stewart, a little bit slower end of the month, but boy did Sal Stewart show us that this man hits for extra bases very, very often. 23 hits this month, 10 of those went for extra base hits, including 7 home runs, 26 RBIs on the month. I just love what Sal Stewart does. It's been extremely, extremely impressive. Flax, finish us off here with the NL Reliever of the Month.
Well, I shouldn't have to tell people, but I will, because if you can't guess that it's Mason Miller, you live under a rock. Mason Miller has been untouchable this year so far. 14 games, 14.1 innings pitched. He's got a 1.26 ERA, 2 runs scored, 27 Ks in that 14 innings pitched, only 6 hits allowed. And if I'm not mistaken, the 2 runs he gave up were in the only game he's thrown in that was not a save situation. And I believe it was just because he hadn't pitched in a few days and needed to throw. And I think sometimes guys just don't have the same stuff in those situations. But yeah, I mean, he's just been so good. Stuff is as good as ever. Pitch mix is working. The slider just continues to get better. And he's just been given the right opportunities on a team that's giving him a lot of chances. So Mason Miller is who we thought he was.
Love it. Final note for us. Flax, go ahead. Tarek Skubal's heading to the IL. Give us some thoughts.
Yeah, loose bodies in the elbow. Is going to have an arthroscopic surgery to have those removed. You know, it's funny. He had pitching against the Braves the other day in Atlanta, had a little shakeup where they had, the trainer come out and then he threw a few more pitches and he was good to go and he stayed in the game. And a lot of people were like, well, why would they, looking back, that was a dumb move by them. Well, in reality, it doesn't make a difference. The loose bodies were there. They existed. If he looks at AJ Hinch and says, I feel fine, I'm going to keep going, you got to trust your guy, especially when you're trying to win games and he's your ace. Now, the flip side is, and I truly believe there's kind of 2 sides to this coin. Does it stink to miss Tarek Skubal for 2 to 4 months? Yeah. But if you can still make the postseason, his value in free agency, his value in trades, everything just kind of dropped. Your opportunity to maybe sign him to an extension during this time period where he's rehabbing, maybe even a 2-year extension to align with some of the younger guys that exist on your roster. Everything's open for business now when a guy goes on the IL for the extended period that he's going. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a Tigers fan, if I hate this as much as I would have initially when I start to really process and think about what the outcomes could be here.
Potentially in a way that's not necessarily positive, especially for Skubal, kind of a potential perfect storm here for the Tigers with the CBA coming up and the potential of a lockout plus the injury. They may be willing to just give him a number right now that makes him feel comfortable. So we will see, as always. Flax, getting into topic number 1 of the day, we're going to run through each division, who is leading that division, and who is at the bottom of that division. And we're going to sit here and talk a little bit about whether or not we think the teams at the top are doing something that's sustainable and if they can find their way into the playoffs with what they've currently shown us through the first month and a half of the year. And for the teams at the bottom, we're going to talk about if we actually think this is the team we're going to get throughout the rest of the regular season. And we're going to start in familiar territory for me, just because that's how it rolled today. And that's the NL East. And I think it's a great place for us to start because at the top of that division is the best record in baseball in the Atlanta Braves at 25-10. They have been great on both sides of the ball to start the year, even with questions coming into the year about their rotation and about the arms that they had from a health perspective. The Braves have looked excellent. They're top 10 in a multitude of hitting and pitching statistics, namely calling out the fact that their offense is number 1 in the league in not only batting average, but in slugging percentage as well. And their arms have been excellent. 2nd in ERA, 3rd in WHIP, and they are 3rd in the entire league in runs allowed. How do you feel about the Braves right now? And with this start, do you think they can continue to rock and roll throughout the year and make a bid for a World Series run?
This is what we expected the Braves to be last year. They're just healthier and they're playing well, right? Having guys like Michael Harris and Matt Olson jump out to the starts that they did, I think was absolutely what this team needed offensively. I think, unfortunately, Austin Riley has started slow, but it's Austin Riley. The likelihood is he's going to be an above-average hitter by the time the season's over. Drake Baldwin, coming off a Rookie of the Year, had no issues adjusting back to the league when they started to switch up the way that they pitch to him. The beauty that he has is he's platoon neutral. So it's really hard to develop a game plan against a guy who hits differently from both sides of the plate, but successfully in both ways. And then the pitching staff, right? That was the biggest question mark, was going to be the starting rotation. But when you have an offense that puts up the runs that they do, first in batting average, slugging percentage, second in OBP, second in home runs, you're going to find ways to work around it. Well, not even having to work around it when Bryce Elder and Chris Sale have been fantastic. The team ERA, second in baseball, third in runs allowed, third in whip. They're not giving away extra bases. They're fourth in hits allowed, but the only way that that gets better from a whip perspective is if you're even better not walking guys, right? And that's what this team does. And then for the second year in a row, Dylan Lee is the most underrated reliever in baseball and has just been absolutely fantastic from the left-hand side out of the bullpen. This is a World Series roster the way it's built, especially when Ronald Acuna, when he comes back healthy from his hamstring injury, is going to go on a tear and be the offensive player that everybody expected him to be at the start of the season. So the offense is just going to keep getting better. The only other guy on that list that I didn't say that I think you and I talked about coming into the year that could be helpful in production is Mike Yastrzemski. Yaz really hasn't been all that much offensively, but I think he's played a really solid left field to the extent that you don't have to worry about who's out there. He's doing the job. He's doing it consistently. He's very sound and comfortable as an outfielder. And he's got Michael Harris to his left, who takes care of, the other 75% of the outfield that he doesn't have to worry about.
Yeah, I love what they've got going right here. And unfortunately, again, watching them within my division just reminds me that, my Nationals have a long way to go till they're going to be able to compete within the division. However, the big point that I think we need to talk about is the bullpen is showing how strong they are, but also how depthy they are. Raisel Iglesias goes down. Doesn't matter because you went out and signed Robert Suarez, who was a already solidified closer in this league. And when you have a guy like that go down, and all of a sudden the back end of your bullpen is still Dylan Lee and Robert Suarez, you have the depth to go a long way, and high leverage innings are going to be so important as they get down the stretch and as they potentially get to the playoffs. So Flax, real quickly answering the question, do we believe the Braves can continue what we've seen in the first month of the half of the year?
Absolutely.
I'm a yes too. Let's flip to the other side of the coin here. The New York Mets are off to one of their worst starts that I think we've seen in a long time, unfortunately. 12-22. They are already 12 and a half games back of the division lead, and we are only 4 days into May as of recording. Their team is not ranked the top 10 in any hitting statistics across all of baseball. And their pitching staff's main sticking point right now, which is not a negative one here, is the fact that they're third in the league in Ks. With the arms that they have, I don't think that's extremely surprising to us. But where I really pull this to, Flax, is Soto's back and healthy and swinging the bat exactly how we expect Juan Soto to swing the bat. What scares me is that MJ Melendez is your next best producer at the current moment.
Yeah.
But what this tells me is something really simple with the Mets. The roster is still what the roster is. They have a lot of injuries right now. They have a lot of players who are performing well. And I mean well. Under what they've done on average throughout long periods of time in the league. Francisco Lindor, Marcus Semien, Bo Bichette. All three of those guys are playing well and producing well under what we know them to do in an average year, let alone a good year. My biggest thing with the Mets right now is I think there's a level to which they're discombobulated and they're falling into what we saw the Braves fall into last year, which is the ILs piling up. They can't find any momentum. And unfortunately, we're also starting to talk about what's going on with the coaching staff, something we'll talk about a little bit later. Any notes on the Mets and their current performance through a month and a half?
It just feels like I mean, not dissimilar from the back half of last year where inside the clubhouse, the outside looking in seems disjointed, right? David Stearns comes out and makes a comment that, the problem is not the manager. Okay, great. But saying that and saying, basically the problem is the players. Who do you think that falls on, brother? You're the one who put that team together. You're the one who put those players on that roster.
And a week later coming out and saying, oh, we might be in the market for a big bat.
Yeah.
You had that. You had this one dude last year, kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
Normally hits about 35 to 50 home runs.
Yeah, you chose not to re-sign him after barely re-signing him the year before. That's my biggest problem here is it just seems so disjointed. Polanco gets hurt. He was supposed to be an important bat in that lineup. I could have told you, I think I did tell you, he wasn't going to be in New York what he was in Seattle last year. Marcus Semien, who's certainly not moving in the right direction from a career perspective, has started slow. On the flip side, the guy they moved him for, Brennan Nimmo, been pretty good in Texas, been pretty comfortable and pretty homey there. We feeling like Brennan Nimmo was the problem in that clubhouse? Not me. Right? That's the problem, right? The guys who are leaving don't seem to have problems adjusting to and becoming comfortable in other clubhouses. Guys getting there seem to be struggling getting comfortable in a new clubhouse. And I think that says a lot about what's going on there from a culture perspective.
Hard to disagree with any of that after what we've seen to start this year. I will say my answer to the question of if this is the Mets team we're going to get all year is still no. I expect people to regress towards the mean as they see more pitching. I expect them to be a little bit healthier. However, I really think that this Mets team this year, unless something drastic changes, is a 500 team at best.
Yeah, I don't see anything changing. I think this is the Mets team that we see by the end of the year. I think they are the cellar dwellers for the NL East when the 162 is over, if I'm going to be honest.
I mean, sorry. Did I say that out loud? That's on me. That's on me. Nats fan, that's on me.
Well, I was going to say it's pretty crazy the way both of our teams are playing right now that none of them are in this segment. One would think.
Dude, Nats are a top 10 offense in baseball against the amount of hits right now. So, nice. Kind of cool. Actually, something fun to watch is really what I'm getting at. Flax, the NL Central. And the NL Central's got something really cool going on after only. I was going to say
we need to clarify. We need to clarify best and worst.
This is amazing. The NL Central is the only division in baseball that every single team is above 500. I can't remember the last time that happened. I really can't. Through a month and a half, everybody's over 500. That's why this one is fun. The Chicago Cubs lead the division 22-12, off to an excellent start. Once again, similar to the Braves, surprise, surprise, multiple different categories where they are top 5 in the league throughout hitting ranks, and also multiple categories where they're in the top 10 when it comes to their pitching ranks. Moises Ballesteros has been absolutely fantastic for them to start the year, but it hasn't just been about the young rookie breaking out. Nico Horner, after signing the deal, has been great. Ian Happ, under the radar somehow, simply because other guys have played so well around him, having a great start to the year. Seiya Suzuki is starting to lift balls once again and has been a great piece in the middle of that order. I really like what I've seen from the Chicago Cubs so far, and the funny part is the guys who aren't performing for them right now from a production perspective are guys that I am very, very confident will be turning it around throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that, the young guys, quote unquote, that needed to do well to keep this team moving in the right direction still aren't what they can be, right? Matt Shaw is not what we know his ceiling is. PCA, certainly not playing to his ceiling offensively. Still a god in center field. But having a guy like Moises Ballesteros show up on the scene and start hitting the way that he's hitting and earning more consistent at-bats. Carson Kelly, still, hitting the baseball well since he stepped into Chicago last year, right? That's not changed. I think when you start to see the way that things pile up, the big question mark for them as the season goes along is how will the pitching staff continue to throw? Will they, A, stay healthy? That was something they struggled with down the stretch last year. And B, will teams start to adjust? Because majority of what they've got is not guys who are going to blow the ball by you. The one piece they did pick up this offseason that they needed to add was Edward Cabrera, right? You had to add that. You had to add that arm that was just a little bit more electric than everyone else. Ben Brown has been fantastic.
Big time. Big time for them, too, because the bullpen was a problem last year at times.
And he's been the big story because of what kind of role he's played out of the bullpen, right? This isn't a guy who's grabbing one inning at a time here and there. He's got 11 games pitched, but he's got 24.2 innings. You need guys that are going to take up innings 2 and 3 at a time in the middle of the game, pitching to a 1.82 ERA. A 2.66 FIP, right? It has nothing, like, he's doing his job. And I think that's what's really going to take them forward. I think my biggest struggle is that that's such a tough division. I don't know that this is the team that wins the division in the NL Central, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Love it.
I really don't.
I love it. We're going to get your prediction for that at the end of the NL
after we talk about the bottom dweller.
Yeah, the bottom dweller. Right.
Yeah.
Only final note real quick on the Cubs here. Michael Busch, wait till they get his bat back. Like, from a standpoint of just like, this is not Michael Busch. He's just adjusting right now to the league adjusting to him. I'm excited for what that offense looks like when he is healthy. Flax, the bottom dweller in the division is the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it's not like it used to be. The Pittsburgh Pirates are 19-16 and only 3.5 games out of the division lead in the cellar, as some would say. This team is top 5 in batting average, top 5 in on-base percentage, 7th in the league in stolen bases. We've talked about now for 2 years how they had to find a way to start putting an offense behind the pitching staff, and good for Ben Cherington and company for finding a way to do that to start the year, because guess what? Pitching staff is still what we thought, Flax. They're 1st in the league in Ks, 7th in the league in ERA, 7th in the league in WHIP. This team looks good. This team looks dangerous. And the irony is, what scares me the most is the guy who's playing in center field, because I want him in the lineup, but I can't keep having him out there in center field on a regular basis.
And honestly, his defense has gotten much, much better. And I think that's what needs to be recognized. For as much as we talk about how frustrating it is to watch him do certain things, it has really improved. I think the biggest problem that was happening early in the year was he was overrunning balls coming in. He was lazy on balls going back. Those are very easy things to change. And then the other piece for him was the communication side to side with his counterparts was not great. But you know what? It was a brand new outfield of guys. They'd never played together. That happens. That's something you expect to get better as the year goes on. But my biggest thing for this Pirates team is exactly what you said. We knew the pitching staff was going to be good. That was no question. The next piece was, how will the offense be able to show up and assist with that? Putting runs on the board, giving those pitchers an opportunity to actually win ball games. Paul Skeens is getting 5 runs of run support a game. It's crazy, right?
Fantastic. I love what they're doing. I'm really excited to see how this continues to move forward for them. You know, Connor Griffin's starting to figure it out. He's having his first hot streak at the major league level, you know, as a young player.
Hit 400 since he turned 20 years old. He
exactly.
just needed to get away from his teens.
So, regardless, let's go back to the question at hand here. 1, do you believe the Chicago Cubs can continue to do what they've done so far? And will they run the table at the top?
They will not run the table. I think the Cincinnati Reds are going to end up winning that division because they lived and died winning games last year by a starting rotation. This year, the starting rotation has not been as good, but that starting rotation will figure it out. And when the starting rotation figures it out and the offense continues to do what it's doing, that team is going to go off in the second half, and they are going to win the division. I like it.
Go ahead. I think that I'm going to say it is sustainable for the Cubs because I really do think that Matthew Boyd is not this guy, right? I think that what we've seen, though he's getting older, he's going to throw competitive innings. Javier Assad is better than he's been. And I think Michael Busch and PCA will do enough, and Michael Busch especially, where I think the Cubs can run the table. The Pittsburgh Pirates, on the flip side, Flax, I think that in a weird way, they're exactly who they're showing. The problem is they're at 19 and 16 at the bottom. So it's a weird question for us to answer because of the situation.
I think that division's just going to be whoever outlasts and stays around longest at the top. It's really what it is. And probably going to be a wild card team or maybe even two.
Can you imagine if we get 4 teams out of the NL Central? You couldn't have paid somebody to believe that 5 years ago. You really couldn't have.
No. Be fun.
It would be fun. Running to the NL West here, Flax, the Los Angeles Dodgers, surprise, 21 and 13. They are tops in the league in a multitude of different hitting and pitching areas. When you're kind of an all-star team, that's kind of how that works to begin with. But at the end of the day, they've actually had some guys stepping up, and they've deployed a couple of different things that many teams don't. Andy Pages has been great. He's been one of the best hitters on the team across the board. Ohtani's who we thought he was. Max Muncy can see again. Every time they just alter his prescription, this dude goes nuts. So, we got to really stay on top of that. And the final thing I want to notate here is their 6-man rotation has been really, really positive from an overall perspective. And Mr. Robleski himself over there has been stealing the show from some of these higher-end arms in Yamamoto and Glasnow.
Yeah, at this rate, he's going to be a 20-game winner this year. I mean, he's 5-0 through 5 starts, 6 games pitched. He's 36 innings with a 1.25 ERA. I mean, it's a mix of, he's got a really good pitch mix, and him as a starter and the game plan as a starter hasn't been seen a ton by this league. So he's getting away with changing up what he does as he goes throughout an order. Guys are having tough time adjusting to him when he does go for a full stretch of innings in a start. I would expect water to find level at some point. But you know what? This is what lefties do. They're crafty, they're creative, they do different things, they mix it up, and they're successful for a very long time doing that. Yeah, I think, what more can you say about the Dodgers? They just have too much talent to not win a lot of ball games.
Justin Robleski has been excellent. For those of you who are, I said Mr. Robleski. I got to give the guy his first name and his credit here. The catch here is, and I think what's scarier about the Dodgers is they're doing this with the slumping Kyle Tucker. They're doing this with the slumping Mookie Betts. They're doing this with the slumping Will Smith. Roki Sasaki and Emmett Sheehan have not looked excellent to start the year, though I believe that'll probably change for, at the bare minimum, one of them, right? I think we can both agree, Flax, and move ourselves to the next team here, that the Dodgers are who we think they are, and there's a high likelihood that what we're seeing is what we're going to get for the rest of the year.
Move it on.
Let's do it. Last place in the NL West is the San Francisco Giants at 13 and 21. They're 8 games back of the division lead. The Giants, frankly, have one singular glaring issue, and that's the fact that their offense doesn't really exist. And until it exists, they're going to struggle. But I think when you look at what's going on from an underlying perspective is you've got a team that has a solid rotation. Their bullpen was getting crapped on all offseason, but guys like JT Brubaker and Caleb Killian have really stepped up for them. Ryan Walker is doing enough at the current moment, which I think is great. He does need to be better for them because he is an excellent arm and they have to have him produce in high leverage innings. But frankly, when on our slow starters list, you have Willy Adames, Rafael Devers, Matt Chapman, and Harrison Bader on that portion of our list, it's going to be hard to win ball games.
Well, and I did a breakdown of Willy Adames and what it looks like we're seeing from him so far this year compared to last year when he was a 30 home run guy. His miss is only one direction. It is dead down the left field line. And not dead to left. It is dead down the left field line. His only power is into the right center gap. And I'm okay with guys who use the backside, but that ain't Willy Adames. When he's going right, he's center field and he's left center field, and he's really good at pulling the ball in the air and hitting home runs. He looks so out of sync right now, and I don't know why that is. I don't know what he changed. There's not a lot in his stance besides getting a little bit more closed off. I think as a team, there's just a lot of pressure to find some sort of stride and get better. And it's like 2 steps forward, 5 steps back every single week with every 7 days. And that's not how you win baseball. That's not how you do well in a season. That's how you end up in the bottom of one of the toughest divisions in baseball. So right now, it's just a struggle for that team. They could put up, 0 to 3 runs as a pitching staff most nights and still struggle to win games.
I feel relatively confident, and I did say this offseason that this was a team that I thought could improve potentially 10 games against their record last year. I do feel relatively confident that this team is not what we're seeing them today. When your arguably best 3 offensive talents are all not hitting at the same time, this is always going to be the result, in my opinion, at this level of baseball. So I'm going to preach patience here. I don't think this is who we're getting. Where are you at?
The only reason I say this is the team that we're going to get all season is because we're reaching that juncture in the year where teams start to separate one direction or another. Or at least the juncture prior to the trade deadline, where you really see teams start to fall off the cliff or climb the mountain. And I think that this team, right now, the way that they're carrying themselves, something big needs to change. And I don't know what that is, because it's not going to come from the starters going out and having a stretch of 5 to 7 games where they go nuts. It's got to come from the offense, and these guys aren't making any changes to their approach. The game is just being played the same way over and over and over again to no success.
Well, I'm going to hope you're wrong, but you might be right. That's why we do this. So, at the end of the day, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, check back with us next week when we hit through the AL teams who are currently leading the division or are in last place. But Flax, let's rock and roll and get into segment number 2. Something you and I, when we had a discussion about this being on the show this week, we're really excited about. And we're back here in Miami. Peter Bendix is out there doing his thing, because it seems like every time we turn around, this Miami team has more young talent to start showing off. At the end of the day, they're going to have to win ball games for any of these statements to matter, and I understand that. But they've got a logjam that's going to start piling up behind the plate, and it's always good when you're a GM to have that type of surplus.
I go back and forth on it. I think surplus is fantastic. I think having it in the right places, having it with the right people is very important. I also think that cutting ties with that surplus when you start to see success is also very important. And the reason I say that is because it's very similar to the conversation we had about Ben Rice a year and a half ago. If you start to get to a point where you got 22 to 25-year-olds coming to the ballpark every day and they don't know if their name's in the lineup card, they don't know what position they're playing, they will get worse. If you continue to option them and then bring them up and send them back down, they will get worse. You need to lock in your core, lock in your consistency, and know that the goal is to stay healthy. You have other players on your roster in that surplus that just aren't as good, but will hold water when the time is necessary. And if you have a good roster of 26 players, one guy isn't making or breaking that. When I look at the situation that Bendix has created with the catcher logjam, we are at that point in time where if Joe Mack comes up and starts playing really well, Liam Hicks continues to play really well, I am not against moving Augustin Ramirez 4 pieces. He has upside. Somebody else can teach him how to play defense. And finding a backup defensive catcher in this league on waivers at any point in time, i.e. Jonah Heim, who just went on waivers.
Drew Romo, who's playing well for the White Sox right now.
Right. Not hard to do if you need someone to take over for an injury. Right? I just think we're at that point where we get to finally see, how does Bendix take his ability to put a 40-man roster and a pipeline together and turn it into the best 26-man he can for an extended period of time that starts to gel, become an actual unit, and win baseball games consistent.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head with this, and my brain is always in that GM space. Is there's a time in which your surplus just has to be used to get these other pieces that you need. And one of the great things about having surplus behind the dish is, in most scenarios for most teams, your backup catcher is a defensive first backstop. Defensive first backstops exist a lot more than a guy who can produce from behind the plate offensively. Plus, you have versatility in a guy like Liam Hicks, who is currently breaking out. Hicks has been awesome this year, and I don't think enough people have talked about what he's done. He's hitting 309, 366, 557 slug, 7 home runs, 29 RBIs. This kid has been electric with runners on base, hitting 373 when guys are on base with 2 doubles, 6 home runs, 4 sacrifice flies. I'm bringing up sac flies today because the ability to execute when guys are in scoring position is as important as anything we do at the major league level. And Hicks has done it phenomenally. Why is that, Flax? This guy, his in-zone contact rate, okay? For those of you who don't know what that is, in-zone contact rate is exactly how it sounds. When the pitch is thrown in the zone and he swings, how often does he make contact with that ball? The major league average is 87%. Liam Hicks is making, his in-zone contact rate is 98.5%. The ball is going to be in play when he swings at balls in the zone. And oh, by the way, he's 97th percentile in whiff rate, K rate, and squared up rate. Does he have the fastest swing speed, and does he hammer balls around the yard like some of these other superstars? No. But he delivers the barrel to the ball when it's in the zone and puts up professional at-bats every time he steps up to the plate. Can play first base, can play behind the plate a little bit if you need him to, can DH for you. I think Bendix truly may have found a piece here in Liam Hicks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the comfort for me, right? At the big league level, especially when you're young, trying to take advantage of opportunities with runners in scoring position can put a lot of pressure on young hitters, especially when you're a team that's not winning, 2 of every 3 games. And I think that Liam Hicks has showed us very quickly that he's got a slow heart rate. He has the ability to manage what's in front of him. Kind of thing you'd want for a guy who plays defense behind the dish. This is a team that can teach guys how to play defense behind the plate. I don't think he's a bad defender. I think he has a lot of room to grow as a defender, especially with a guy like Joe Mack coming up, who is an excellent defender behind the plate. But having that offensive production and giving him the versatility as a player to be in the lineup in a lot of different ways, fantastic bat to consistently be a part of this roster. Again, guys that are being built in Bendix's pipeline on his roster. The question is, how do you consistently let this guy know, hey, this is your role, this is where you're going to be, you're going to be in the lineup every night, keep doing what you're doing. Part of it falls on Clayton McCullough running that team in the dugout. Another part of it's going to fall on Bendix, especially the way that he runs that organization.
Completely agree. Flax, let's drop into Joe Mack here real quick, who, as of the day of recording, is making his major league debut. Very excited to see this young prospect get on a big league field. We all know that he has the ability to be a high-end defender behind the plate. This is a guy who consistently has a sub-1.9 pop time, is an excellent athlete from an overall perspective. It was one of the big pieces when he was drafted in the first round by the Marlins. With the bat, he shows the propensity to potentially be a middle-of-the-order bat if he can make enough contact at the big league level. K rate is the only thing that is truly of concern here when you look at his batted ball profile, but he's extremely aggressive early in the count against fastballs. he hunts the straight stuff in order to make sure he brings impact on a regular basis. This is a guy who was a 20-plus doubles, 20-plus home run guy in the minor leagues the last 2 years in a row. That raw power has the chance to translate. I think we're looking at a guy who probably does hit closer to 220 to 240 at the big league level. But if he's barrels balls up, you're going to see 20 doubles and 20 home runs. And if he's that good behind the plate, that's your guy for a very, very long time if you're smart in Miami.
Yeah, you mentioned it, right, that he attacks fastballs early in the zone. This year at the AAA level, 407 WOBA, weighted on base average on fastballs alone, 486 slug on fastballs, a 53.6% hard hit rate, and an average exit velocity of 94.3. He attacks fastballs and does damage to them. You have to be able to hit fastballs at the big league level. He's going to hunt them early. They're not going to throw him a lot of them because they know he hits them well. He's going to have to find the ones that are over the plate, take advantage when he gets them, and see how it all shakes out. He won the 2024 Gold Glove for minor league catchers. That's how good he is. Throws out 41% of base stealers, which is a very, very good number, especially at the minor league level where guys run all over the place because they're doing everything they can to show off any bit of versatility that exists. I'm excited for him.
I love it. I'm excited for him too. I'm hoping that somebody is telling him to take the Yordan Alvarez approach right now, which is just force them to throw the spin in the zone and hit the fastball. I think you'll see him hit a couple bombs very quickly if he does that, because the pop from Joe Mack is very, very real. A lot of whip in that swing, as you like to say, Flax. He truly does deliver the barrel well. Last guy we're going to talk about real quick, and he is the one who, in my opinion, makes this a surplus, is Augustin Ramirez. They did just option him to AAA. You had a really, really good note on what you were seeing against his batted ball profile and his production stats this year. This is a guy who was very solid for them last year, but truly was that classic all-or-nothing type guy at the plate. He was either putting it over the fence or you were hitting a topped dribbler or striking out on a regular basis. I think there's a lot to like. People forget that Augustin Ramirez is still only 24 years old. Somebody might be willing to take Augustin Ramirez off Bendix's hands to help Bendix solidify his bullpen, to help Bendix get some upside somewhere else where he thinks he needs it. Go in a little bit to what you were seeing from Augustin Ramirez.
When I was looking at Augustin Ramirez's profile, and you saw what he did last year versus what he was doing this year, he took advantage of fastballs. And this is, again, the biggest thing we talk about. You have to be able to hit fastballs at this level. Well, what are you going to do at the beginning of the year with a young guy who's trying to continue to adjust to the league? You're going to force him to keep hitting fastballs. If he started out the year banging them around the yard, then maybe we change our approach. But teams are just shoving fastballs down his throat right now. I think he's got a 120 slug against fastballs right now. He can't hit them if he fell out of a boat. I don't think that's the saying. I messed that up. But either way, that's his biggest problem right now, is that teams are taking advantage of where he was already starting to struggle as the year went on last year, where they noticed he was struggling in spring training, and they're just taking advantage of it now. And unfortunately, he is also in a division where he has to face a lot of fairly solid fastballs. This is a league built on him, right? So, I think Augustin Ramirez has the ability to be a 230, 240 hitter, but hit 35 bombs. But he's got to start making some of those adjustments. If not, it feels very much like his career is going to continue to turn into what Gary Sanchez's career has been. Very small flashes of some solid power, but for the most part, he'll catch for maybe another year and a half, end up moving to first base sporadically, DH a bunch, be a bench bat, and hopefully continue to stay in the league until the point that Gary Sanchez has.
Listen, and there's a point to this where, like, him becoming a Gary Sanchez type, if he can just be a little bit more consistent, it's not going to hurt him. What we always talked about with Gary Sanchez is the lack of consistency from an offensive perspective. You would get the peak one year, and you would get the absolute bottom the next year. And maybe the next year after that, you got the bottom 2 and you had to wait another 2 years to see what the peak looked like again. But these are types of guys who they are so all or nothing at the plate on a regular basis that their peaks and valleys are massive. And it's really hard to stay in this league for a long time when your peaks and valleys are like that. My favorite example, for those of you who know, and we won't dive too much into him here, is Miguel Sano. He had more power than maybe anybody we've ever seen in our entire lifetime. But it truly doesn't matter when you're all or nothing and you can't find the barrel consistently. It's going to shorten your career no matter who you are at the end of the day. So I end us here with this, Flax. Really nice spot for the Marlins right now when it comes to the talent they have. They have a lot of guys that they're trying to get ABs to. It's going to be exciting to see what Joe Mack is able to do at the big league level and if he can quickly solidify himself as more than likely, just because of his defensive prowess, the primary catcher in Miami for a long period of time. Let's move on to everybody's favorite segment, and maybe our favorite segment. That's Jackson's bullpen. Jackson, teach us something new.
All right, boys, welcome to Jackson's bullpen this week. We got a really fun topic, I feel like. So I went through bullpen ERA rankings this week. And the number 1 team surprised me a lot, so I decided we were going to talk about them. Flax, can you give me a guess on the best bullpen ERA in baseball so far this year?
Is it the Cardinals?
No, it is not.
Damn.
Ryan, you want to stab at it?
The best bullpen in all of
by the way, I
baseball.
guess the Cardinals because they have an outlier. So
They
thought
do.
maybe
No, not a bad
I thought
guess.
that maybe the outlier would have like really brought them in.
I'm gonna go with the Atlanta Braves.
Incorrect. The best bullpen ERA at a 2.74 is the Texas Rangers.
Really?
Oh,
They've had
wow.
one of the best bullpens in baseball so far this year. It surprised me. I feel like if you ask any even like hardcore baseball fan to name more than 3 relievers on that team, they still probably could not do it. I'll give you some of the names who have been.
Wait, I was gonna say the funniest part is that their bullpen is just all old guys.
Yeah. So this is the guys who've been performing so far this year. Gavin Collier, who I believe got picked up in the offseason, 7 innings pitched, 0 ERA so far. Jacob Latt, soft toss and lefty, 13 2/3 innings, 1.32 ERA. Soft toss and lefty Tyler Alexander, 1.72 ERA. Jacob Junis, Jakob, best spelling name of all time, 1.76 ERA. Jalen Beeks, another soft tossing lefty, 1.84 ERA. And then Robert Garcia, 3.38 ERA. I think the most interesting part of this is they don't have a closer. Latz, Alexander, and Junis all have 2 or 3 saves and are leading the team. And I feel like it's really interesting. I went back and looked at Fangraph's positional rankings coming into the year. They had the Rangers at 23rd best bullpen coming into the year, despite the fact they had the 5th best bullpen ERA last year.
Wow.
But it was a bunch of misfit toys last year. I mean, I read the Fangraphs write-up on them. That was a bunch of misfit toys. A bunch of them left, and they replaced them with more misfit toys. And Fangraphs were projecting it not to work out. And so far, it's working out very well for them. I think it's very interesting. They've been walking a decent amount of guys, but the other stat they ranked first in bullpen is left on base percentage. 81%, first in baseball in left on base percentage. I feel like it's the biggest job of the bullpen.
You taught everybody who Latz was a couple of Jackson's bullpens ago, if I remember correctly. And my one note here is I understand that we all think it could be a little bit of a surprise that they got all these older soft-tossing lefties. Then you remember that their GM is a soft-tossing righty who played forever in Chris Young. So this all makes total sense to me.
He just wants pitchers. He doesn't need throwers. He just wants pitchers.
I think
That's wild.
I think the most interesting part of this is that the Rangers, I believe, 2 games under 500 right now. The rotation, which we thought was going to be a strong suit, hasn't been great. DeGrom has been DeGrom, 2.01 ERA, but Mackenzie Gore, Kumar Rocker, Nathan Eovaldi, Jack Leiter, ERA is north of 4.5 right now. If those guys, Eovaldi had a really good start last week, made it on the Scudder Report, check it out on Twitter. But
Nice.
All 4 of those guys were expected to have good years. I feel like they're going to get back down to earth. If they do, this bullpen can be half decent the rest of the year. I feel like this can be one of the better pitching rotations and bullpens in the AL, and it could be very dangerous.
I think it's got a team that, there's a lot of upside there. they're keeping themselves in ball games because of that bullpen. You know, the thing that Skip Schumacher has to figure out is how often he dips his toe into the bullpen, how long he lets those starters go when they're maybe not throwing as well. I think one of the reasons why you see starters with some higher ERAs and the bullpen with lower ERAs is that he's not overusing. I mean, you go back and look at some of the number of innings you're talking about some of those guys throwing. They're not bullpen arms that are already touching 20 innings pitched, right? He's forcing the Lighters and the Evaldis and the Kumar Rockers to go a little bit deeper into games and throw more innings, maybe give up 4 or 5 runs, but then the bullpen's going to come in and at least keep it there and give the offense a chance. That just means that the starters can start to pick it up and turn those 5 runs into 3 runs more frequently. You're going to win way more ball games.
Agreed. And to your point, I mean, 121 innings pitches, a bullpen ranks 22nd in baseball. That has not been exactly a high usage bullpen so far.
Right. I completely agree. And I think the one thing that I look about with this Texas Rangers squad is the starting rotation has been the main kind of, area that needs to improve at the current moment. This is the type of team that could really, really scare people if they sneak into the playoffs here by the end of the year. We saw it happen a few years ago when they won the whole thing. But, guys, a bullpen that just seems to dazzle and mesmerize teams and is doing it in a different way than everybody else, making it much harder for your hitters to adjust and be used to what they're seeing in the box. This is a distinct advantage that the Rangers could take into a postseason run. Starters got to be better. Offense has got to be continuously getting better for them to have the opportunity.
Completely agree. Thank you all for having me on this week. Let's have a good rest of the episode.
All right. That was Jackson's bullpen. I know we learned something. I hope you learned something as well. Flax, let's hammer right into the last topic of the day. Unfortunately, we're here talking about another manager fired. This time, it was former Phillies manager now, Rob Thompson. The NL East has a lot of hot seats going right now, and Rob Thompson was the first one that has lost his position. Thompson had been solid within his Phillies tenure in the regular season. He had .355 and .270 record, one NL pennant, which was in 2022. A 21-17 record in the postseason with arguably one of the better collected rosters in all of baseball over the last 5 years, and truly just not a ton of postseason success. The slow start to the season where they were 9-19 before he got fired and lack of postseason execution has a lot to do with why we're seeing the Phillies and Dave Dombrowski's group move on from Rob Thompson.
Yeah, my biggest thoughts on this was just kind of how it was handled. Very similarly to the Red Sox, right? Immediately, reports came out that Dombrowski, before even firing Rob Thompson, had reached out to Alex Cora asking if he wanted the job. Like, put the man 6 feet under first. It's crazy. And it's weird because I don't necessarily look at Dave Dombrowski as a guy who generally handles these situations poorly.
Bryce Harper. Sorry. Did I say that?
Well, that's true. He is kind of on a roll right now. But if the other big thing here is, right, they give the position to Don Mattingly. You want to read between the tea leaves. Mattingly left the Blue Jays, decided to make his way over to Philadelphia this offseason. I don't know that it was planned, but it was definitely a backup plan. Mattingly, happy to take it on, but, realistically, probably won't be the guy by the time we get into the 2027 season. His son is the current GM of the Phillies, right below Dave Dombrowski as the president of baseball operations. I think that's a more interesting topic, to be honest with you, is to kind of see how these groups work together. I don't necessarily see the Phillies being a team that tries to manage the game from upstairs, similarly to like the Marlins, but they're definitely going to have their opinions about who's on the field when and who they think Don Mattingly should be putting more effort towards. And the question will be how that kind of plays out.
I'm interested to see it happen. I think you have to assume, and I know you probably agree with this, that no matter who the interim manager is, like, you're always going to have that side effect, which is the front office has more to say because in a non-negative way, you're just not their guy, right? Not yet. Maybe you develop into their guy, but you're not yet.
Warren Schaefer in Colorado.
Exactly. Very, very easy change here for them with Mattingly's son already being part of that front office. At the end of the day, I think the change made sense. I like Rob Thompson. I think he did a lot of good things while he was in Philly. However, there were a couple different times where it was felt as if the clubhouse was a little bit mismanaged from a standpoint of player personalities. I'm not staring at anyone specific, but we all know the Nick Castellanos saga, and he didn't make it easier for him to do it. But it's really difficult when the players and the managers have tension and have friction. It does move throughout the clubhouse. So I think it was necessary, and I think this change will help the Phillies turn it around a little bit. I think they have they have a higher likelihood than the Mets to turn it around this year for sure. Flax, was it a correct change or a good change to be made?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that Rob Thompson, very similarly to Alex Cora, was very respected in that locker room. Given the situation and the fact that it wasn't a house cleaning, and Mattingly being the guy to replace him, who also generally a fairly well-respected guy around the game of baseball, means that this team and these veterans are just going to keep doing what they do. No, I don't think it was the right move, but I can also see the merit in just needing to make a change with Rob Thompson being there as long as he was and being a little bit long in the tooth at this point.
Fair game. That's kind of where I'm at, actually. I think that at some point in time you just got to change the mojo, and when your roster's older and has to be good right now, there's never a better time. Flax, very quick topic for us here. Carlos Mendoza is the other NL East, manager that is absolutely in the hot seat. He might be sitting in the hottest seat in all of baseball outside of Craig Breslow right now.
Yeah, and again, like, if there is a situation in which I think the correct decision to be made would be to relieve a manager, of the three, including Cora and Rob Thompson, this is probably the one that I think would make even more sense. I actually thought maybe this should have been done before the 2025 season. The 2024 season didn't end really as well as it could have. That was a broken down team. You get Juan Soto. Why not start a little bit more fresh then? Now you're 2 years into his, or a year and a half into his tenure there. You have a team that's still struggling. I just think it's time.
I think it's difficult no matter what. When you relieve a manager of their duties, I think when your team is in the level of flux that this group is in, outside of just their play on the field, adding in the injuries that they're dealing with, adding in what seems like a level of discombobulation across the entirety of the organization, if there was ever a time to say, let's try again, frankly, it actually might save other jobs in the organization. And I hate that that's the case, because you never want somebody to have their head on the stake. But Stern's probably going to need to make a move to keep his own job here if this continues at this rate too, as much as he's supposed to be trusted. And I get it, but like, patience will wear in New York faster than anywhere else. And let me tell you something. I don't care how philanthropic this is for Stephen Cohen. He ain't going to sit around and watch his team be at the bottom of the division. It's just not going to happen. So
no chance.
We'll see. Flax, is Mendoza in the seat by the end of the year?
No, God, no.
Yeah, I think he's...
That's a quick call for me.
I think, unfortunately, he may be out before the end of May if something does not turn quickly, and I hate to say that. All right. Not bad today, Flax. Rocking and rolling. Final thoughts from you, and I think I know where you're going to go.
Same place I always go. Denison Baseball had another successful weekend sweep. They are 37-1. They are on a 36-game winning streak. They start their conference tournament this coming weekend as the number 1 seed in the conference after going 16-0 in conference play. And then probably, regardless of what happens there, they'll be hosting a regional the week after. So all good things for the Big Red.
Love it. I love to hear it. My final thought is, one, I'm not gonna suck in 2 weeks on my next start in men's league. Don't worry, I'll figure that out. And then my other final thought is, it's just don't suck. That's all I got for everybody this week. It happens. As always, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really love putting this on for you, and we'll continue to do so. Make sure to share the podcast with all of your friends, streaming on their favorite place to listen to podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. And of course, make sure you come and say hi to Flax and I on social media, consistently posting and making sure there is fun baseball-related content to make sure you get your fix throughout the week. As always, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, frankly, wherever you find social media content. But as always, we appreciate you guys. Have a great week.